Joining me today is none other than an LA legend. He was born in LA, grew up in LA, had his best playing days in LA, correct?
Yes, sir.
None other than Michael Cooper, five-time NBA champion. How are you, man?
I am doing wonderful. And you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Just enjoying this great weather out here in LA that it just never rains, even though you guys have had rain these last couple of days.
More sunny than rain. That's why I love LA.
You're from an era where you've played with two of the greatest center, and probably one of the greatest point guards from the 80s, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson. What was it like playing
Juan, hold up. You got to add James Worthy in there
and,
too.
and
I
James
played with
Worthy?
three of the greatest.
You're right, three of
Yeah.
James Worthy. So it was a different era. And you even played with AC Green, who if I'm not mistaken, I mean you played with. What was it like playing with Kareem and Magic and James Worthy? Talk to me. What was it like playing in the locker room? What is one thing that you guys did also off the court that people may not know about, other than what other extracurricular activities went on?
Well, first of all, let's put this straight. I played with Kareem. Them other guys played with me because I was on the team first. But no, when we were all playing together, it's kind of like this analogy. I love jazz. And in jazz, you have a pianist, you have a trumpeter, you have a saxophone player, you have a drummer, you have a stand-up bass. And everybody is great in their own right, but if they don't conform and try to play that rhythm the way that it's supposed to be played and everybody comes together, then you're not going to get that magical sound. And when they do, you get a sound like Miles Davis kind of blue. You get something that is going to last forever. And that's how I look at our team. We were a team that all came from different people. James Worthy from Dean Smith in Carolina, Magic from Michigan State, Judd Heathcote, uh, Kareem from John Wooden era, myself from Norm Ellenberger era. All of us came as individuals, and we got this thing together, but we had to conform because it wasn't about who got the job done. It was about getting the job done. And it was kind of like playing with your brothers, or you grew up in a neighborhood with five or six people close in the neighborhood, and all you guys see each other. You may not be blood brothers, but you all grew up in the same neighborhood, and you guys do different things, and you go to the same school, and then you in the summertime when there's nothing to do, you guys get together, play basketball, and you say, hey, listen, let's go over 2 blocks away and play them guys over there, or let's go to the gym. Well, we already knew each other so well. So as Pat Riley put this together, he made our practices very, very comfortable. He made them competitive. So for me playing with those three great players, along with many more, Bob McAdoo, Jamal Wilkes, Norman Nixon, Kurt Rambis, Byron Scott, AC Green, you mentioned him, Michael Thompson. You put all those pieces together, and we're like from the same neighborhood, and then you go out there and you get competitive, and we know what we're going to do. It's just it really turned into a machine. I mean, that's what we were. We already knew what to do. All Pat Riley had to do was give us all the information for the scouting report, plays that we wanted to do offensively, things that we wanted to do on the defense, and each one changed because you don't play the Chicago Bulls with Jordan the same way you play the A Train with George Gervin and that group that he had in San Antonio. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And just to say something about those three people, Kareem was always great. It was awesome to see and be with him for my whole entire career. But I'll say this about Magic Johnson and James Worthy one. I saw two good players come out of college. Magic had just won the national tournament against Indiana State and Larry Bird, comes to the Lakers. And Magic was a good player. He was a good fundamental player. He was a team player. James Worthy, the same thing. Both of them came there. Magic Johnson was not a great shooter from the perimeter when he first got with the Lakers. Worthy had an okay jump shot, but there were some things he had to clean up on his game. And one, I say this, the greatest joy I've ever had, and again, the 5 championships are great, going to the finals 9 times, winning defensive player as an individual accolade that I like, but I don't hang my hat on because I'm about team. In 1987, the greatest joy I've had is to see James Worthy, Magic Johnson come into the league as just good players but to exit this league as legendary players. And I like to feel that I got to see that every day. I know the work they put in, the blood they put in from scraping the arm and back the injuries that they had, and the sweat and practices that we did. And during the off season when we were getting ready, Magic and I used to work out because James would go back to North Carolina and visit his family. So Magic would stay, and the times we would go shoot in empty gyms and the work that we put in, and then we started incorporating other players to see those guys become Hall of Famers, legendary players. That to me is the thing I hang and cherish the most because, I like to think I helped them along the way, but to see how they did it, I can tell kids, hey, listen, you want to be great? This is how you do it. So that for me is the best thing I've ever had to realize and to be a part of throughout my career with those players.
I know 5 titles, and this is going to be a tough question, I should say. Before, yeah, we've won 5. Which one's your favorite, or which one was the hardest one, or which path was the hardest to get to, and which one's your favorite?
The hardest one was probably our 1988 one, and the reason for that because there was a lot of pressure on us. That particular series, we went 7 games every series, Western Conference, even up to that, the semifinals and all of that, and then the championship game. We went 7 games, but it was the most delightful one too because we had done something no team had done in 16 years, and we were the first modern team other than the '60s Celtics to repeat. And remember, Celtics back then in the 60s were winning 66, 67, 68, 69. I mean, they were just winning championships one after another. No team had done it since then. So for us to do it in 1988, to go back to back, that was something special, and it was the hardest. The easiest one was 1980 when we won our first one because we didn't know what we were doing. We were just playing basketball. We were trying to put the pieces together, and we finally found ourselves against the Seattle Supersonics, which is the Oklahoma Thunder team now. They used to be in Seattle. Dennis Johnson, the late, great Dennis Johnson, Gus Williams, Jack Sigma. They had a great team. Downtown Freddie Brown. They had a great team in '79, and they had just won the championship. So we found ourselves playing against them in 1980. And we were just like, hey, man, let's just go out here and give it our best. We just was playing. We didn't know what we were doing. And lo and behold, we find ourselves in the finals playing Philadelphia, the great team they had there. And when we won, and the way we won, Kareem got hurt. Magic comes in and shows the type of player that he's going to be for his entire career. He takes us to a championship, 42 points, 15 rebounds, 15 assists, triple-double in the finals. And that was the easiest one. The one I love the most is 1985, because growing up here in Los Angeles, watching the Los Angeles Lakers every year, Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, and Elgin Baylor, late Elgin Baylor, seeing them always playing against the Celtics and coming up short and never could get over the hump of beating the Celtics. Well, Jerry West becomes our general manager. He starts pulling the strings and getting the players that we need. 1984, we see the Celtics. We lose, and now I'm thinking that jinx is on me. we won't be able to beat the Celtics. But we get our chance in 1985, and we won the championship, and it was like erasing all the ghosts or that green cloud that was always over Los Angeles from the 60s and the 70s. And now we had gotten over that. So it was like revenge for Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain. Pat Riley was on that team when they won a championship in '72, and those teams that could never beat the Celtics. That's the one that I cherish the most because, again, growing up in Los Angeles, seeing all the fans coming up and wanting us to beat the Celtics, and we could never beat them, we finally did it at '85. So it was a gauntlet of feelings that I just gave you right there, of emotions. But
I love it.
Every championship to me was one that I'll always remember.
So I want to hear more feeling because my next question, I want to compare. You come from an era where they wouldn't call many fouls, and this season the NBA is finally going away with that motion where James Harden, Steph Curry. I mean, even on calls, you hear the play-by-play caller say, "Nope, that's not a foul." How do you feel about this new change and this new rule that the NBA is finally coming back and not having James Harden shoot 20 free throws a game?
One, I love it. I love it because they're letting the players make the play. It's not about them controlling or being more one-sided and giving the offensive player the opportunity to make something happen. Yes, the NBA loves scoring. That's part of the game. But you still got to give credit to not only individual defensive players, but good teams that are playing good, solid defense. And, you know, if you go up to block a player's shot, you don't jump into him, but you go straight up and you come down, and this player jumps into you. He consumes your space, and it's a foul on me. I love the fact that they've taken that out of the game. And I think that's why you're going to see for more competitive basketball. You look at the beginning of the season and you look at teams that never would ever have a chance. I mean, the Warriors are a good team. They're 4-0. I don't think they're going to go undefeated. They're going to get beat. But again, the Warriors, if you look at what they're doing compared to what we were doing back in the 80s and Showtime era, people always thought we were an offensive team. No, we were a very good defensive team. The Warriors are that. That's why they're 4-0. You look at Chicago. Who would think that they would be 4-0 at this point in time? If anything, they should be 0-4. But they're playing good, solid defense, and they're taking advantage of that loose call. I mean, the no whistle call now. They're banging a little bit, and I love that because that's basketball. If you go look what they did the last 2 or 3 years, they coached the NBA like college. You know, you can't touch offensive player. Everything's offense. No, you got to give credit to the defense. And that's why you're going to see a lot of teams. That Memphis team came in and gave Lakers all they could handle and beat the Clippers the night before. And if it hadn't for Ja Morant missing that free throw, that game would have been overtime, and they possibly could have beat the Lakers. So all of that is done off of the defense. Coaches are now coaching and doing a little bit more things defensively, but I like the way that the NBA has made that adjustment and now letting them play basketball. They're grown men. You got to let them play a little bit, and when you let them play, it's going to be a lot of contact, and sometimes it's called incidental contact. Everything is not a foul, but if I bump a guy, I ain't trying to knock him down. We just happen to run into each other. And in the past, those were called fouls. Now they're not. I love it.
So you mentioned something. Showtime Lakers. I know that's from your era, and I know that we're trying to give that title to this team's Lakers without even playing a game. LeBron, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, and Carmelo Anthony. You can even add him to the mix. But this team has had a shaky start. Obviously, the chemistry's not there yet. How do you feel about this Lakers team with Westbrook? I mean, he could be a turnover machine. James's age and he's injury prone. How do you feel about that?
I love this year's Lakers team. I told people at the beginning of the season, I do have a Showtime with Coop podcast that I have. And I said this at the beginning, about 2.5 weeks ago. The Lakers are going to win a championship this year. And it's going to take them. I said, you're going to have to wait because it's going to take them till after the All-Star break. Let them get 25, 30 games up under their belt and let's go. And as you see, it's been a rocky start. But I love this team. I love this team for 3 reasons. One, what won them the championship in the bubble the last time is that they dominated with big basketball. JaVale McGee, Dwight Howard, AD. Dwight Howard and McGee took a little bit of pressure off AD, so he didn't have to go out and be consistently playing high caliber physical defense because that's not him. AD will block shots. AD will cause problems. AD is more of an offensive machine because at the other end, he is a handful to guard. If he plays on the perimeter, bigs don't like to go out there, so he drives by him. If you play play on the perimeter with a guard, he shoots over them. If you play down low with a big, he takes the big outside and he goes around them. So he causes a double problem. 2, they're going to win simply for the fact that they got a lot of veterans. They got, as you stated, LeBron James, AD. Now you add Westbrook and Carmelo. And the reason those 2 pieces are important because you got 2 guys coming from, one from Portland, one from where was he at last year? Westbrook, Washington. He was in Washington, and they never won a championship. I don't think any of them has played. Either one of them has played in the NBA Finals. Did Westbrook play? Westbrook in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Okay, but they haven't won. That's the bottom line. They haven't won a championship. Now you bring these guys together. That is going to give them a chance, and they will sacrifice their own game to be part of something special because AD and LeBron has done that, and I know they're talking a lot in practice, and they're telling them, hey, man, if we do this, this is going to get us there. All we got to do is get there. And just to add to that, the Lakers got to get to the playoffs with health. If they get there healthy, I don't care whether it's 1 or 8. As long as they get there, they're going to win a championship because I don't see anybody beating them, especially in the West, to prevent them from getting there. The third reason, you got a good supporting cast on the bench. You got kids on that bench, Trevor Ariza, Ellington, TNT, Rondo. You got guys that are accepting of their roles. And that's important because coming off the bench, I'm not going to be out there 38, 40 minutes. No, I might be out there 10 or 9 or 10 minutes. And all I do is just play my minutes, play my position, play my role, and then come sit down. And if that happens, is what you stated earlier, Juan, that's when your chemistry starts coming together and everybody starts playing. It's all for one, and that's when it's going to happen. So if the Lakers do those 3 things, which they will, I really truly believe that, it's not going to be an easy road. I'm not going to say they're just going to sweep people and they dance. No, it's going to be a tough road to get there because everybody is different now, different players on different teams. I allow the Chicago Bulls team, the way they're playing, they're going to cause Milwaukee some problems. But we look at on the West Coast, we're still kind of nervous about Golden State because they're winning without Klay Thompson. And when they get Klay Thompson back, he's going to add a new dimension to them. So Lakers get those 3 things done, they're going to be all right. That's why I love this team. I really do. I can put up with Westbrook's turnovers. I can put up, but you know what? He turns the ball. Westbrook had a quadruple double the other day. 10 plus points, 10 plus rebounds, 10 plus assists, and 10 turnovers. But I like the fact that he's going to give you more triple doubles than quadruple doubles because he's not going to turn the ball over and he's going to always be aggressive. Only thing I
You're one of
worry
the few
about
that
him.
likes that.
Pardon me?
And you're one of the few that likes that, actually.
Well, yeah, and you have to live with that. With all the good he brings, you got to deal with some of the bad that he's going to bring. And you know what? I think his attitude is a little snippy. He looks like he's a little bit hard to coach, but I think Coach Vogel will have help from AD and LeBron, as well as Carmelo. I think they can kind of rein him a little bit because all you do is bring him in a little bit. I think the Lakers' biggest problem is going to be when to play him and who to play him with. I don't think him and LeBron plays well together because then but the reason why they do a little bit, because Westbrook will go rebound. If he rebounds the basketball, he gets offensive opportunities. If he rebounds at the defensive end, he can speed dribble and go get baskets. So that's just a little dilemma, but I think that's a big one because LeBron is the choreographer of all that's going on down the stretch. And Westbrook doesn't shoot a jumper good enough, but I still think we can live with the other things that he do.
Okay, I know you got to go. So I'm going to ask you a 2-part question real quick. How do you think this Lakers team would have fared against your Showtime Lakers? And how do you think LeBron would have fared if he would have played in the 80s? We know he's great. I say this all the time. LeBron could play in any era. He has the size, the strength, but it was a more physical era when you went against the bad boy Pistons, when Kurt Rambis was waiting for you with that elbow when you drove. How would have he played if he played in the 80s in your era?
I'm going to answer your second question first. I'm with you, Juan. LeBron could play in any era, and especially in the 80s. That's a big guy, man. And I've had opportunities to be around him and see him. LeBron James could play in any era. He was dominated the 60s and 70s. I mean, it was just been flat out with his speed and his size. In the 80s, probably a little bit more difficult because you had more players that were just as big as him. Charles Oakley, John Lucas. Maurice Lucas from Portland, Worthy just as big as him, but he would have been able to hold his own. I think he's worked on his jump shot to make him a little bit more difficult to guard because 4 or 5 years ago, he didn't have that deadly 3-point shot. So if you're going to give him something, you give him a perimeter shot. Now he can knock that shot down, so you must honor that, get out there and deal with him. So LeBron, one of the players that, it don't matter what era, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and going forward, he can play. He's a heck of a player. The Lakers team today would not stand a chance with us because we would outrun them. We would I don't think we would out physical this team, but we just have more dynamic parts than they do, and we played well as a team. Now, ask me the same question around playoff time. If they put this together, this is going to be a deadly team. It's a team that got a lot of pieces and that can play different styles. That, to me, was big for us because we weren't super big, but we could play big. And the reason I say that because Pat Riley could put 6'9", AC Green, 6'9" Magic Johnson, 6'9" James Worthy, 6'10" Michael Thompson, and 6'7" Michael Cooper on the court. We're a big team, man. And we still had that athleticism and the quickness to get up and down the floor. You want to go small? Michael Cooper, Byron Scott, Magic, Jamal Wilkes, Norm Nixon. You go small, we go small. We still were tough, and we still could put the ball in the basket as well as play good team defense. So this team here, I'm gonna hold on that. I think if you're asking me right now, want to answer now, of course we would beat them. But ask me that as you get closer to the end where they put all this together, then I might have another answer for you.
Okay, I know I said finals, but I cannot leave without asking you this one. Defensive player of the year. What three players were the toughest ones to guard for you from your era or even just in general?
In my era, the three toughest people.
And it cannot be
George
Magic.
Gervin. What?
It cannot be Magic.
Well, I knew how to guard Magic, so he's kind of easy, but Magic causes problems. But one was George Gervin. And the reason Gervin was hard because he had the same body type as me, so he could get through curves, around corners, around big people, and he was great at using angles. George was probably one of the toughest guys to guard because you could never rattle him. He always had that composure, and he just kind of like played the game, and he laughed and smiled and talked out there. So and don't give you 45, easy 45. Gervin won. The other one, and again, there was Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Benny Johnson, just to name a couple right there. Dale Ellis from Dallas and from the Seattle team. There was a lot of guys, but I'm going to give you the three toughest for me. The second toughest was a guy named Andrew Toney. And people forget about this kid in the 80s and 80s. He was called the Boston Strangler because Boston couldn't even guard him. This kid was from Southwest Louisiana, blew out his Achilles. This is like in 83, 84, 85. Andrew Toney was 6'4", about 210, real strong, but had a knack of getting to the basket, and he was just had a lot of tenacity, toughness. Like, he'd kick your ass. And he was a good defensive player. Andrew Toney was really, really good. He was hard to defend. And I'll say this about this last guy, and he might have said Michael Cooper was the toughest guy to ever guard him. Larry Bird was the toughest because of all the people that I just named. And, don't forget about Michael Jordan, because at the time Michael Jordan came in the league, Michael was real athletic. And I would hate to see Michael in the 90s when he really learned how to play. Not that he couldn't play, but he really understood the game as you get older. That's why I don't include him, because once Michael gave up the ball, then it was kind of like, okay, I know where he is. I don't have to pay attention. And that's the same thing with Gervin and Andrew Toney. When those guys gave up the ball, I didn't have to pay too much attention to them. Larry Bird, you had to pay attention to him all the time, because if you didn't, he's going to get an offensive rebound, put it back. He was going to set a pick. He was going to do something to get something going on the offensive end as well as the defensive end. But offensively, he was the hardest one because when I tried to get bigger, he lost weight, moved me on the outside, was a little bit quicker. When I got skinnier the next season, he gained more weight, started posting me up. So he was always changing. He was like a chameleon, just changing his game every year to do more and more. So for me, Larry Bird was the hardest player I've ever had to guard because you had to pay attention to him every single moment out on the court.